Today's going to be a fun day. Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall? 10 o'clock today, Joe Biden meeting with Donald Trump. Trump's got to walk in there and be like, thanks for keeping the place nice and warm for me, right, buddy? What do you say? Hey, I'm getting the keys back to the old house. Can you pass them on there, Joe? Thanks so much. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Who would have predicted this? Go back, 4 years ago. After all the nonsense of January 6th, 2021. Donald Trump does not show up at the inauguration. He is leaving the White House in disgrace. Joe Biden's coming in. We're told he's going to be a president of all people. It's going to be a time of unity in the United States of America. Donald Trump has zero political future. We're told he's done. There's no opportunity for him. His legacy is disgraced. COVID, January 6th, put it all together, summer of love. It was one big 4-year mistake. And now we sit here nearly 40 years later, and he is, as we speak right now, leaving to get on his plane to go to the White House to meet with Joe Biden. And obviously there's been a lot of talk over the last week as to why things went down the way they did on Tuesday. And don't get me wrong, it was a great win for Donald Trump. We've talked extensively about that. I believe he did get a mandate beyond what we've seen for any Republican in my lifetime, just based on winning the popular vote combined with an electoral college landslide. But let's not kid ourselves here. The disaster that has been Joe Biden, and Bill O'Reilly, our friend, calls him the second worst president ever, also allowed Donald Trump to get back to the point that he's at right now. Donald Trump being able to compare his 4 years side by side with the 4 years that the American people have experienced from 2021 until now, allowed Donald Trump the runway to say, listen, yeah, fine. Didn't end well, but guess what? Were you better off during my tenure than you are today? And it's really that simple a question. And it worked out very well for him, obviously, last Tuesday night. He had a smart team around him, and now he's off to the races, getting everything back in order, making his cabinet picks. Those are being announced, it seems like, every single day by the half a dozen. And there's a lot of moving parts right now. I'm looking at Donald Trump getting on the plane, Trump Force One, soon back on Air Force One, to get back into the White House and get himself, of course, back as president of the United States. He's leaving West Palm Beach as we speak. Now, speaking of things happening down there at Mar-a-Lago, I heard from somebody privately in the last, 20 minutes or so. Somebody sent me a text message who has been down at Mar-a-Lago for the last couple of days. And what this individual told me is that it looks like our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, in the state of Missouri, is one of the finalists for the Attorney General job under Donald Trump. It appears to be Andrew Bailey and Matt Whitaker as the two finalists for the Attorney General position. And I do know, John, that Andrew Bailey just met with Donald Trump yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, and according to my source, the meetings went great.
Interesting how many of these potential people we've spoken to here on the show over the 6 years.
You know what? You are spot on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Homan obviously comes to mind. Pete Hegseth, who was just named Secretary of Defense, comes to mind. And now, of course, Andrew Bailey, who is a friend of the show.
Well, and we could also say that Eric Schmidt maybe was under consideration and took himself out. We talked to him.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. We've had Huckabee on before, of course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a lot of people that have been friends of this show over the years who are now getting very prominent positions in the Donald Trump administration.
You got any news for us, Pete?
I know. No.
Which one do you want?
Nope. You know, someone did text me, a friend of mine. They were saying it tongue in cheek. They said, you'd be a great press secretary. I said, listen, Trump needs, and I think Trump wants, a very attractive woman in that spot.
Somebody who might have just got edged out in a Senate race.
Yeah, Carrie Lake, maybe.
Maybe.
Is that what you're thinking?
I think she'd be good. She's obviously done the job. Like Mark Alford, she knows what's coming.
She does know what's coming. I think the name I saw was his attorney from his time in the courts in New York, and I'm blanking on her name, but I think that she's the one that Donald Trump wants to potentially make the next press secretary. Alina Habba is her name.
Oh, right.
So I think he's eyeing her from what I've seen. And listen, I don't know if she'd be a good pick or not. She's an attorney. That doesn't mean that she knows necessarily the policy of the Trump administration as well, but that's the name that I see floating around there.
Chris DeGaulle for Education Secretary.
Chris DeGaulle, our old pal. Oh, there you go. I like that. Yes, absolutely. Now we're cooking. I like that, Mark. Well done, my man. Well done. But listen, you're seeing Donald Trump put together this team of people that obviously are very loyal to him, but he's not going way out there on some of these picks. They're actually more mainstream than I would have expected some of them to be. Like Marco Rubio as Secretary of State was a surprise to me, to be totally honest. Pete Hegseth nominated as Secretary of Defense, Fox News host on the weekends. He's got 20 years of service. Some people are like, well, that's a goofy pick. He's just a TV guy. Well, hold on. The same people that are saying Pete Hegseth was a goofy pick said that Tim Walz and his stolen valor made him qualified to be a heartbeat away from the presidency because, well, he's a veteran. He served this country. Yeah. I mean, Pete will do fine in this role. Okay? And we know that Donald Trump has an affinity for people who look like they're at a central casting, who are on television, and in the case of Pete Hegseth, obviously, have been big supporters of his for many years. So I don't have a big issue with any of these picks right now. And if you're like, well, we need someone who is inside the Pentagon for Secretary of Defense, how's that worked out with Lloyd Austin? Huh? How's that worked out with Lloyd Austin overseeing Afghanistan withdrawals, disasters on the world stage, DEI all over the Pentagon, all over our military? And, oh, how about that $300 million bridge or pier they built to help out people in Gaza that collapsed and never went anywhere? The price tag on that pier was $320 million. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to listen to the people who defended Lloyd Austin. I'm not going to listen to the people who claim that, Tim Walz was a decorated veteran who may have had stolen valor, but, he's a great guy. We should trust him. He's a military man. I'm not listening to them. I am done with that. And the bulk of the American people should be done with that as well. And now you've got Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy leading the Department of Government Efficiency. And that is also such a unique pairing. The only question I have with that pairing is whether or not those two egos can coexist and run something together. They're both young, highly successful, highly motivated, highly driven guys. But apparently, from what I've been reading and hearing, they've been together for a long time now. They've been working well together. They have a good rapport, and that's great. And slicing and dicing the bureaucracy needs to happen. Elon Musk took over Twitter, now X, and slashed the staff in half. Might have been more than half. But he totally blew out a bunch of people at Twitter, now X. He made it more efficient. There was a lot of bloat. There always is a lot of bloat in some of these large tech corporations. And Elon said, this place is not running efficiently. We're going to cut it in half, and we're going to figure out the way to make this thing run as efficiently as possible. That is desperately what Washington, D.C. needs. When RFK Jr. talked the other day about getting rid of 600 people at the National Institute of Health, I was like, oh, that sounds like a nice start. You know how many people work for the National Institute of Health? Almost 19,000. There are millions and millions of bureaucrats, and I guarantee you most people don't know what the heck any of them do. I don't. Wasteful spending is a massive issue. Getting transparency back to our government is something we need to do. And now may be the last best opportunity to do exactly that. So Trump's putting, I think, smart people and effective people in these positions. And while in some cases they'll be learning through the job, I trust a guy like Elon Musk to learn on the job. I don't know about you, but that's a guy I trust to learn on the job. I have no qualms whatsoever with one of the smartest guys of our time learning something like this on the fly. It'll be okay. It's just like you. Sometimes you hire people for positions that maybe they're not the most qualified in the moment, but you know they can grow into the job because you trust their smarts, you trust their instincts. That's what this is with Elon Musk and also with some of these other hires. So I have no problem. In fact, I'm a big fan of most of these hires as Donald Trump continues to balance, yes, his MAGA loyalists with also some people who might be considered more traditional, older school Republicans. Mike Huckabee's in the fold, ambassador to Israel. Elise Stefanik, ambassador to the UN. You've obviously got Marco Rubio, who appears to be the next Secretary of State. So I believe he's blending this very well. And the reality is Donald Trump's success or failures are going to be determined by how well his administration does working on behalf of the American people. Then none of these appointments, frankly, are going to matter because no one's going to remember, for the most part, all these people to begin with. I mean, you'll remember Elon Musk, obviously. He's a historic figure. But for the most part, a president's tenure is not defined by their cabinet picks. Do the cabinet picks do the work of the American people? That's what will impact the legacy of any president. 913-408-7957. Donald Trump is about to depart Florida for a meeting at the White House with Joe Biden. Gosh, that's going to be a doozy this morning at about 10 o'clock. We'll have you covered all morning long on KCMO Talk Radio. Are there any of these picks right now that you are questioning? This is like watching Real Life Apprentice, except season 2 is a hell of a lot better than season 1 back in 2016. 913-408-7957, 6:15 as we get it rolling on a Wednesday morning. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Well, just a quick listener note this morning. If you're normally a texter, we will, as of right now, not be able to get your texts because we are having some internet issues up here at the radio station. It happens. We've got the crack engineering staff on it. But just know that if you're normally someone who texts in and you're like, hey, I had a pretty good text and Pete didn't read it on the air. Well, I can't see it right now. So that's why we're doing this the old school way, at least to start off the show. And that's only getting and only able to get to your calls. I guess you could put it up on X and I can look at it on my phone, but that's the best I can do right now. So we've got obviously a monitoring situation. Donald Trump just left Mar-a-Lago and got on his plane. He is going up to Washington, D.C. this morning to go visit with President Biden. And then we're also getting more announcements over the last 12 hours or so on different cabinet positions and appointments for Donald Trump. And I've got a source down at Mar-a-Lago who's been there who tells me that Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is down to one of the final 2 folks to be the next Attorney General in this country. And that could be good for us. You know, having the AG as a good friend of the show would not be bad for KCMO. Bail John and Mark out of jail when they need it, help out the show, be a frequent guest. That could work out well for everybody here.
A couple of months to go until some statute of limitations run out for me.
Yeah. I knew it was coming up, John, so that's a very good sign. In the meantime, speaking of law and order, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce had their homes burglarized last month. This was reported first yesterday by TMZ. According to 2 police reports, authorities responded to incidents the day before and the day after the team's game against the New Orleans Saints. Now, these 2 guys obviously live in different places. They do not live, neither of them live in Kansas City, Missouri. So you can't be like, KCMO crime. You can't do it in this case. Mahomes lives in Cass County in Loch Lloyd. And then, of course, Kelce lives in Leawood. So as Fox 4 confirmed with the Cass County Sheriff's Office, a burglary report was taken at Mahomes' residence in Belton during the early morning hours of Sunday, October 6th. The police report indicates it was a bodyguard who called about the incident. And Kelsey, of course, lives in a gated community in Leawood. And an online report from the Leawood police indicated a burglary occurred at an address matching Kelsey's home. That report was taken on Tuesday, October 8th. TMZ reports that the police indicated that in the case of Kelsey's, his back door was damaged and $20,000 in cash was stolen. After the game, on October 7th, Kelsey and girlfriend Taylor Swift stayed at a downtown hotel. It's unknown at this time if anything was taken or if anyone was home when the crimes took place. TMZ reports that its sources believe the burglaries may be part of a larger crime spree. The FBI is assisting with the investigation. And, of course, you've got our local media now following up with area law enforcement agencies, and we'll update the story as it becomes more available. So we will talk to Curry Myers here at about 7 o'clock this morning, former Johnson County Sheriff, get his input on how you figure out whether or not this is part of a larger crime spree, whether or not this is part of, I got to imagine, an organized event. You get in the Loch Lloyd, there's two gates. You've got Kelsey's, who was obviously part of a gated community. And you've got, in the case of Mahomes, you've got bodyguards around the property, and still somehow these guys are breaking in? First off, I might be looking for new bodyguards if I'm the Mahomes family. I'm just going to throw that out there. I mean, I got a guy people breaking into my home when I've got two gates to get into my neighborhood and private security on the premise, and you're still breaking in? I mean, unless this is like the guys from Breaking Bad, that is a really bad sign for the private security at the Mahomes residence that this is happening. Now, is it a local group, a national group? Who the heck knows? But the fact that they appear to have coordinated to hit the Mahomes residence and the Kelsey residence within about a 48-hour window in and around their Monday Night Football game against the Saints, that is not good. That is obviously highly concerning on both fronts. So that's one of those deals that obviously you look at and you say to yourself, okay, how do we continue to make sure that, first off, these guys feel safe being in their freaking homes, especially given the Taylor Swift angle? I mean, put Taylor Swift's people on it, for crying out loud. I guarantee you, I mean, as a billionaire, she's got to have the best security known to mankind. Who is it? There's a guy in the NFL whose brother, or no, he's a dancer for Taylor Swift, not a bodyguard.
Yeah, Colin Saunders.
Yes.
That was, yeah.
So, okay, so that's he's a dancer, not a bodyguard. But she's got to have the best security known to mankind, being Taylor Swift.
We got a bolo on Xavier Bubadar.
Yeah. Where is Chief Saholic?
It probably wasn't him.
Yeah, I don't think it was Chief Saholic. He's got to be in the can at this point, right? So he's nowhere to be found. But whoever did it and whoever's involved with this obviously is doing it in a carefully coordinated manner. But you just hate to see it. However, you can't sit here and blame this on Kansas City crime, at least not yet, based on the facts that we currently have in this story. So we will have to just wait and see what details come out on this. But TMZ beat everybody to the punch on this story. So I don't know how they got the leak or where their leak came from. But obviously, they're not going through Cass County, Missouri police reports and being like, whoa, okay, the Mahomes residence was robbed. They got tipped off by somebody, which tells me somebody wanted this story out there. It's not just a coincidence that suddenly we have two police reports from it's over a month ago now. That was October 8th, or October 7th, that game against the Saints took place. So it's a long time ago now. And why it's coming out now and why suddenly somebody wanted this story out there, I find that interesting as well. I don't know which camp it came from, whether it was Kelsey's camp, Swift's camp, or Mahomes' camp, but clearly somebody got this into the hands of TMZ. TMZ's not going through Leawood police reports in their spare time. I promise you that. Breaking news at 7:35 this morning. The inflation number just came out, rising to 2.6% for the month of October. That is in line with the expectations, which were 2.6%. Core CPI was 3.3%, in line with those expectations as well. So that news just coming down here in the last 4 minutes. Core CPI, by the way, excludes food and energy. So it gives you a little more of an idea of where things are at when you take out food and energy, everything else that is costing you more money. So once again, these numbers came in at the expectations, but also headline and core CPI inflation are higher than they were 2 months ago. Probably not a good sign for mortgage rates with where things are at right now. I would say it's not a great sign when you see these inflation numbers tick back up from a couple of months ago. Now, you might say, oh, this is great. I can already see it on the text line right now. Pete, stock market's up after a CPI number this morning. Joe Biden's handing over a Goldilocks economy to Donald Trump. Stop! Stop! Please do yourself a favor. You guys who've been trying to convince the American people the economy's great, you got your butts handed to you last week. Just knock it off. Stop. You're embarrassing yourself at this point. Okay? The American people did not agree with you that the economy's doing great. Now, I suppose if your home's paid off and you got a lot invested in the markets and you're approaching retirement, then, yeah, you know what? You probably felt pretty good. You don't have kids in the house anymore that you have to feed, so you're not going to the grocery store. You're not spending hundreds of dollars at Costco on a weekly basis. Yes, you're probably right. The economy was doing pretty good for you. But regular people said last Tuesday, it ain't working. You would think that one of the lessons that would have been learned on the other side of the political aisle is trying to convince people of something that they don't believe is a fool's errand, and they should just knock it off. Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris basically spent the last couple of years, but especially the last few months, trying to convince you the economy's better than you think it is. Inflation's coming down, they said. Yeah, okay, it's coming down, but prices keep going up. And when you stack inflation year over year after year, that's how you get to 20% because it's a compounded number. It's not like, hey, we had 10% inflation last year or 2 years ago, and then we had 5%, and now we have 2%. Yeah, but that's 2 on top of 5 on top of 10. That's how you get to close to 20%. It's not like every year it resets to the same base level number, and it's like, well, last year was 10, and now it's only 5, so it's half. Well, yeah, but that's 5 on top of 10. That's how the number works, John.
Juwan Taylor, their right tackle for the Chiefs, his penalties are down. Yeah. He's still been flagged 17 times, I believe I heard last time.
Yes, I know. When Kate knows Juwan Taylor, you know you got a problem, okay?
When a lineman's name is known, he's in trouble.
Yes, absolutely right. So if that is the approach that some of you want to take on the text line, oh, Joe Biden's handed a great economy to Donald Trump. Oh, man, he's going to be off to the races. Please continue with that. It will prove to me that you have learned absolutely nothing from what the American people signaled last week. And that is that for millions of working class, regular people, they disagreed with that statement and they were insulted by your pitch. That is why every demographic moved to the right from 4 years ago. Working class people across all racial groups. The only people who moved slightly to the left, 65 plus, less likely to be impacted by the inflationary policies of the administration, and college-educated women. And it was very slightly to the left. Not in a big way, just very slightly to the left. Meantime, you had double-digit sways to the right for Latino men, Latino women, Black men. I mean, everything was moving to the right and all these other demographics, young men across the board. Stop. Give it up. Give it up. It's over. I know you tried to make it work. You tried to tell the American people they don't realize how good they've got it. And they said, nah, we ain't buying it. But if that's going to be the take this morning with these inflation numbers, please just keep doubling down on it. All right? On the text line, Pete, the American people have spoken, and Kamala Harris is not worth our Red Lobster money.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
Yep. Not worth the Red Lobster money, and not even worth the McDonald's money.
I'm not worth your McDonald's money?
Come on! Come on! That's right, Pastor Funderburk, right here in Kansas City. And the whole I'm not worth your McDonald's money takes on a whole new meaning after Donald Trump, of course, worked the drive-thru at McDonald's a couple of weeks back. The memes have been outstanding. If you haven't seen the memes, there was one of Donald Trump standing at the drive-thru, handing over the McDonald's bag, and it's him saying, "You won't believe the promotion I just got." And I'm like, oh, that is hysterical. I've got to leave.
That's classic.
I've got a new job. You're not going to believe it. Oh, man, it's just so good. Meantime, Donald Trump is heading to the White House for a meeting with Joe Biden this morning. And to be a fly on that wall would just be, oh, my goodness. That would be amazing. But he left about an hour ago from Palm Beach. He's heading up there. They are scheduled to meet at about 10 o'clock this morning. So if anything's happening in that meeting, if they allow cameras into that meeting, of course, we'll bring it to you here on KCMO Talk Radio at 95.7 FM. Now, speaking of people who are trying to convince you that they are just working stiffs, here is Whoopi Goldberg yesterday on The View trying to relate to the working person who said, you know, this Biden economy really hasn't been working for me. And Whoopi tried to convince you that she's just a working stiff like you are.
I'm sorry. When you have one candidate who has been running for 12 years, who lies and changes things, I appreciate that people are having a hard time. Me too.
Yeah.
What?
I work for a living. What? If I had all the money in the world, I would not be here. Okay? So
No, first off, Whoopi Goldberg has tens of millions of dollars, and she would be there because her ego requires her to be there. That's what you got to realize. With a lot of these people who are hanging around too long in media, like look at Andrea Mitchell. Did you see Andrea Mitchell on MSNBC? She fell asleep a few weeks ago on the air. She's 78 years old. Whoopi Goldberg is going to be 70. Actually, Whoopi turns 69 today. Happy birthday there, Whoopi. Woo! All right, Whoopi Goldberg. I just looked it up. November 13th, 1955, she was born. So,
if you were old enough to be my babysitter as a boomer when I was a kid, you might, Leslie Stahl, Martha Raddatz,
Andrea Mitchell, Whoopi. Yeah, trust me, Whoopi, you are there because you don't know what else you'd do with yourself. And that is the case for too many people at that level in media. They just, what else are they going to do? When you've cultivated an audience, you don't want to really leave. You see it in radio too often. You see it in television. And your ego doesn't allow you to leave. So please, Whoopi, I'm here because I'm a working stiff. No, you're not. You're there because you don't know what else to do with yourself.
I'm a working person, and my kid has to feed her family.
Oh, yeah.
And my great-granddaughter has to be fed by her family. I know it's hard out there, but I also know that there are a lot of things that we just said, no, I'm just going to go this way.
Right.
And a lot of that is also what happened. I love what she did. Yay. We talk to people all the time who say, this is what's bothering me. But the thing that's bothering everybody should not be the thing that puts 85% of other people in danger.
Yeah.
What?
I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah, the Karens clap. Oh, whoop. Putting 85% of people in danger? So Whoopi tries to relate to the working person there. And just so you know, I did look this up, and her recent contract pays her $8 million a year, in case you're wondering.
Can't get by.
Yeah, it's tough out there, And then she says, well, I understand you're struggling, but you voted for Trump, who puts 85% of people in danger. Where do you come up with the number 85%?
And it's a 5, right? It's not 83.7.
It's not 82.
Not quoted from any place.
It's not 81. It's she didn't want to pick a number with a 0 on the end of it, so she split the difference with a 5.
Price is Right rules.
Yeah. It's what is 85%? Who are these 85%? Because Trump just won the popular vote. He had the largest electoral college victory for a Republican in 36 years. So who are these 85%? It's once again insinuating you are too stupid to realize what you just did. Which, if you want that to be your takeaway, please, by all means, go ahead. Please. I'm happy. I am more than happy to have that conversation and see how that works out for you in the foreseeable and long-term future. 913-408-7957. 746 as we roll up till 8 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. What about, speaking of The View, Kansas getting a shout-out yesterday? I know. I'm watching it just because it brings a smile to my face. I can't have the mimosa while I'm doing it because I got work to do when the show wraps up, but I am getting a kick out of it here over the last 8 days or so. And Kansas got a shout-out yesterday on the show. We'll tell you why next. So Kansas got a shout-out on The View yesterday. Not necessarily for the right reasons, but not for the wrong reasons either. One of the hosts on The View, Sonny Hostin, was looking to make the point that people regret voting for Donald Trump.
That's Janet Jackson Jr. to me. That's the sort of Anna Navarro looks like she always perpetually has the mumps. So I got mumps and Janet Jr.
Yeah.
And you got Whoopi.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great idea, John. Someone said on the text line we should start calling Whoopi by her real name, Karen Elaine Johnson. I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she's Karen with a C. It's C-A-R-Y-N.
Should we accuse her of cultural appropriation with Goldberg? Maybe not.
No, I'm good with that. Okay. I think that makes sense, right? I mean, it's a common Jewish name, and Whoopi ain't Jewish. Promise you that much.
Yeah, I'd have to check into that.
Yeah. Very well done there. So, Sonny Hostin was trying to make the point that 1 week into Donald Trump being elected, people regret their vote. And she talked about how many Kansans are already searching on Google, according to her research. I'm sure that's quite a crack staff she's got there. I thought I had a crack staff here. I'm sure she's got quite the crack staff there. Sonny Hostin saying that Kansans are regretting voting for Donald Trump. Let's roll this minute-long clip of Sonny Hostin yesterday.
I still don't believe that this was about the price of eggs, because if it were about the price of eggs and the price of gas, I mean, Trump didn't address those during his rally. He didn't address those during his campaign. He did address a microphone in a sexually explicit way, but he didn't do any of these things. And so I don't know that Democrats need to do a postmortem because, again, Republicans, after their devastating loss in 2020, didn't do a postmortem.
Hold on. Let me just stop right there, and then we'll keep getting into her clip. First off, Trump didn't talk about inflation. Okay, lady, you clearly never watched a Trump rally. You just saw the highlights of the things that left-wing media wanted you to see, but you didn't actually see any of the substance. And then she goes, well, Republicans didn't do a postmortem after 22 when they didn't have a big red wave in the midterms. Actually, they did. We talked about it extensively here on the show. The big issue for Republicans in 2022 was what? Candidate quality. Dr. Oz, Herschel Walker, Kari Lake, bad candidates who could not win. Dr. Oz wasn't even from Pennsylvania. The guy lived in New Jersey. He was a TV doctor from New Jersey. Oh, let's run him for Senate in Pennsylvania. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, relatable Dr. Oz. He can hang out with the coal miners in Western PA, said nobody ever. Dumb pick. Herschel Walker, great football star from Georgia who couldn't string together 2 sentences and had a ton of baggage. Bad, dumb pick. Kari Lake, she tried again, but she had turned off a lot of the more moderate Republicans in that state over the years. Not the perfect pick for Arizona. And I like Kari Lake, but it wasn't the right pick for that state. And unfortunately, that turned out to be the case again this time around. There was a postmortem in 22. It was talked about extensively. We did a lot of it here on the show. How do you get the messaging right? How do you get more working people into the party? What needs to be done to get these people out to vote, to engage them? Maybe there were too many cultural war things going on 2 years ago. Not enough substance on the economy, how to get things turned around. we had all those conversations. And now there she is, Sunny on The View, being like, they didn't do a postmortem 2 years ago. Absolutely we did.
They didn't do a postmortem after January 6th. In fact, they put forward the same exact candidate. They ran the same type of campaign of otherism and demonization, and they're just fine because they're back in office. And so I think people are starting to have a little bit of buyer's remorse. We actually have a graphic on the morning of Election Day, yes, on November 5th, before the polls were even closed. Google Trends saw a spike in searches for how to change my vote. Guess what? You can't change your vote. Also, in states with high search interest, Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska.
Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska. People were searching, according to Sunny Hostin on The View, how to change their vote. So what's interesting is Kansas voted for Donald Trump by a wider margin than it did 4 years ago, about 57 to 41 over Kamala Harris. 4 years ago, Trump got 56% of the vote. So he did a little better in Kansas than he did 4 years ago. And she claims that people on election morning were trying to figure out how to change their vote. Maybe that's people who had voted for Biden last time around who wanted to now vote for Trump this time around, and we're trying to figure out how to change their vote. Now, why you need to Google how to change your vote tells me that you are a low information voter to begin with. You know how you change your vote? You go to the voting booth and you vote for a different person than you did last time around. That's how this is actually done. But the notion that there was some Google search trend that said people in Kansas were Googling how to change their vote on Election Day is somehow a suggestion that there is buyer's remorse on Donald Trump 1 week later. Man, they are really grasping for straws here. And I'm just totally here for the meltdown, man.
Queen of denial.
Yeah, I will continue to try to bathe myself in these crocodile tears for as long as I can.